Hi, my name is Tim Hammons, and today I will be narrating Snowdrop by Seth Oberlender. The door hissed open, and the figure stepped through. He was struggling to hit the big red button for the door under 3 layers of coats, scarves, and snow. When he finally pressed the button, the door slid shut behind him with a low hiss that gradually got higher before closing. He shrugged off the first layer and let it fall to the floor with a wet plop before removing his face mask. The welcoming feeling of warm air hit his face, and he sighed a sigh of relief. He was home. He walked over to the terminal on the far wall of the airlock and typed in his code, relishing the responsive click of each key. The smaller door in front of him raised open, and he stepped through while removing the second layer. He threw the wet coat on the lone bench to his right without looking, and began to remove the smaller effects from his person. The gloves went first and joined the coat on the bench, along with the scarf, heat pods, boots, 2 layers of socks, and the last overshirt. He slumped over to his favorite overstuffed chair and melted into it. Before he could so much as take a breath, the screen in front of him jumped to life, and the monotone voice of the base's AI began spouting off information. Outside temperature, negative 45 degrees Celsius. Interior temperature, 20 degrees Celsius. Sensors read, emergency override, code 66789. The screen blinked off. He pressed the usual combination of buttons on the desk, and a steaming mug shot up from the hole next to the screen. He grasped it, taking a minute for the warmth to spread through his hands before taking a sip. He leaned back, mug in hand, and took in his surroundings. The base was small, but bigger than the other ones he'd seen in pictures. The stone walls were lined with heat strips that glowed a bright orange. He often stared at the heat waves coming off of them when he was bored, which was a lot of the time. The strips also acted as light sources around the edge of the room, shining amber light on the spots that the overhead bulb missed from its fixture in the center of the ceiling. Old robot arms and work tables made up the clutter scattered around the room, along with other stuff he found out in the wild. A few odd-colored rocks, some tarnished remains of drones, anything he thought he could use. He glanced at the digital clock on the wall. 1400. Time for the best part of his day. He leaned over and maneuvered an arm with a microphone at the end so that it was pointed at his mouth. He then hit the big green button on the little black box next to the screen and was welcomed by the sound of static. This is Research Base 73-8 on Channel 1. The date is January 13th, 3187. I'll be rewinding the distress beacon on this and every channel I can from 1400 to 2100 when the beta signal is in range. Please head to these coordinates if you receive this message. Jagger pressed a few more buttons and heard the familiar beacon start up. He then proceeded to repeat the message for all 11 channels he had range for. After that, he returned to Channel 1, and his real fun began. All right, welcome back to Snowdrop, your savior from insanity. I'm your host, Matthew Liam Jagger, from Research Base 73-8, the home of rock and roll. Jagger picked up a small cartridge from his desk and pushed it into a slot in the black box. This one goes out to the unlucky guy or gal who hears it. Remember, I send out my location every day from 1400 to 2100. Stay frosty. Jagger leaned back in his chair again, sipping from his mug and taking in the fast guitar riffs dancing on the radio waves. He stared at the ceiling, but he didn't see it. He didn't feel anything but the occasional warm liquid sliding down his throat, and that was it. All he did was listen, and wonder if anybody else was listening too. Well, thank you for listening to my first narration on this channel. I hope to do many more in the future. Snowdrop was written by Seth Oberlender.